We shake drinks for a number of reasons. To mix them, to chill them, to water them down a little in order to balance them out, but also to aerate them. And that's the key difference between stirring and shaking, is aeration. Anytime you're using fruit juice, eggs, or dairy, you must shake because those ingredients require aeration to combine. I hear a lot of misinformation in TV and film about how shaking a drink is somehow more watered down than stirring or vice versa, but that simply isn't true. Whether a drink is shaken or stirred, if it's done properly, it should be around -5 degrees Celsius and anywhere from 10 to 25% water. Today I've picked a couple simple classic cocktails for us to make that'll give us a good chance to work on our shake. And that's going to be a traditional whiskey sour and a gin fizz. So both of these drinks are going to use egg whites. So I'll start by separating out my egg whites. I'm going to crack it on a flat surface as opposed to the edge of my bowl or my shaker because that way the shell doesn't cave in. And then just toss that yolk back and forth between the two halves of the shell until all of that good egg white goodness falls off. And now I'm going to add 3/4 of an ounce of lemon juice and 3/4 of an ounce of simple syrup to each of these. You'll notice that's the same measurements as the bee's knees. Of course, this is a traditional simple versus the honey simple. Then 3/4 of an ounce of lemon juice. Then our Gin Fizz is going to get 1.5 ounces of gin. If you remember, that's our benchmark, is 1 part sour, 1 part sweet, 2 parts liquor. And I'm going to use the smaller side for that, so that for our bourbon on the whiskey sour, I can use the bigger side, and that way I don't have to wash my jigger in between uses. Now we're going to have to do what's called a dry shake. Anytime you're working with eggs, you have to shake them at room temperature to combine them before adding ice, and that's called a dry shake. Before we get shaken though, we're going to talk about our grip. There are really 2 factors to consider. Surface area of your hand and safety of others. It's obviously most important that you secure the top and bottom of the tin. That's going to prevent spills and concussions and all sorts of messes. But it's also important you limit contact with your skin because as the glass gets colder, it'll siphon off that heat from your hand. And that can prevent your shaken drink from reaching sub-zero temperature. You can see as these shakers fit together, the bottom 28 ounce is going to create this overlay. And that's going to be the perfect place to position your hands. So you're going to want to grab your thumb around that way, and then you can grab either with your middle finger, your ring finger, or both. And then we're using this wedge shape to create leverage with our forefinger on top. And that's your one-handed grip. For the two-handed, we're still going to take advantage of that overlay. But we're going to rest the pinky of our non-dominant hand on the bottom of the glass, while the thumb of our non-dominant hand rests on the ridge. Now the thumb of our dominant hand is going to go on the top of the 18-ounce glass, and our pinky and ring finger are going to rest on that ridge. So you can see I'm limiting skin contact as much as possible, and that is your two-handed shake. All right, well now we've talked about grip, let's get those dry shakes done. Now, I have a buddy who, when he does his dry shakes, always does a two-handed grip. And that's because, since there's no ice, the pressure never changes inside the chamber. And that means that there's never any seal that's created. So you have to really focus on keeping the containers together and keeping that seal tight. There's one done. I'll do this one one-handed so you can see. Just giving that a good shake. And you want to shake these for about 30 seconds. Now that we've finished our dry shakes, it's time to add the ice. It's important that we don't add too much ice because that will impede movement and prevent thorough mixing. Whereas too little ice will water the drink down too much and not chill it properly. I think it really depends on the size and shape of the ice, but there's two rules that work in most situations, and that's fill it somewhere between 2 2/3 and 3/4 full. And the smaller the ice you have, the more you're going to need. I've got this crappy grocery store ice, so I fill it most of the way up there. My shake is really quite simple. I go back and forth, varying my speed and intensity until I feel that condensation on the outside of the glass is beginning to freeze. When I'm in the bar and I'm having to grab menus and check people out while I'm shaking, my shake just adapts to my situation, my surroundings. So I can shake here. Sometimes I'm coming across the front. Sometimes I gotta behind the head. Just follow your heart. Shake however you feel comfortable. Now that we've got those drinks shaken nice and cold, it's time to pour them. So first is going to be the whiskey sour, which is going to go in a coupe glass traditionally, or a martini glass. You can see I've got this stemless martini glass I've had chilling with some ice water here. So we're going to pour that up. That means it's served without ice. And we're going to mark it with a couple dashes of bitters. And that spice is really going to complement the oakiness of the whiskey. A Gin Fizz is traditionally going to go in a tall, thin Collins glass, but I don't have one, so I'm going to use this neat stemmed beer glass instead. We're going to pour that right in there, and we're going to top it with some club soda. And you'll see as I add the club soda, the carbonation is going to work in partnership with the membrane of the egg whites to produce a nice thick layer of foam that's going to top this crisp, refreshing beverage. You like the whiskey, right?
I do.
There we go, man. I'll take the gin. Sláinte.
Cheers.
Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this episode of Crafts Cocktails. All right, you can cut.